What's going on, fight fans? Welcome to the Total Takedown. It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. And as always, every week on Thursday, we are running back over this week's fight card from a totals perspective, looking overs and unders. We broke all these fights down on Monday. Let's talk about how long we think these fights are going to last. Do me a favor, smash that like button, leave a good review, comment your favorite total on the card for UFC on ABC 3 down in the comment section below. First fight of the night, we've got Emily Ducote taking on Jessica Penne. Total set at 2.5 for this one. I do have to remind you all, the show is brought to you by Pub Sports Radio in combination with Superbook Sports. We are quoting Superbook Sports lines for every single one of these fights here. Make sure you go check them out. The over 2.5 is minus 175. The under 2.5 is plus 155. And this is kind of a crazy short line for women's MMA. Usually we see the over 2.5 sitting upwards of minus 250, something in that ballpark. So interesting that they've got it set lower. I think they recognize the finishing upside of these women. Jessica Penne, we know, has that crazy high-level jiu-jitsu game. She struggles with the wrestling, but if she can tie you up or flop to her back, she'll get to the ground any means necessary and work away with submissions. Ducote's actually a black belt herself, so she's not going to be afraid to go to the ground with Jessica Penne. She's got a decent little wrestling background on her, but the level of competition difference here is massive. This is a big jump up for Emily Ducote. She is going to have a speed advantage on the feet, and I think that's significant. I think that's going to be the one thing that really tips this fight in her favor, is if she keeps this thing striking. I think she'll be able to touch up Penne pretty much whenever she wants to. But we struggle with these debutantes taking on these high-level UFC caliber fighters that have been proven. Part of me says violence. Like, for some weird reason, I feel like we're going to see a crazy finish in this one, whether it's Emily getting on top and raining down those elbows, or if it's Jessica Penne finding a way to teach this young buck a lesson, get onto her back and choke her out. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but for some reason, I want to say violence. I don't know if I can pull the trigger to do it. We might just be getting a break here because they think there's going to be violence, but in fact, we get that grindy 15-minute first step up in competition type of fight. I don't know, folks. I don't have a great read on this one. I'll say over 2.5, and let's save some time and move on. Dustin Stoltzfus taking on Dwight Grant coming up next. Total set at 1.5 for this one. 1.5 is minus 210 to the over, plus 180 to the under. Dustin Stoltzfus, a primary grappler, BJJ black belt. We know Dwight Grant has that big one-hitter quitter type of power, but he fought at 170 his entire career. Moving up to 185 here for this fight. This is winner, go home for both of these guys. They desperately need a win. Dustin Stoltzfus has never been knocked out in his career. I think this is a dead nuts over. I mean, Dwight Grant can clip and hurt anybody. We've seen Dustin finished in the third round before, but Dwight Grant has also given up takedowns. He can be low volume. You can see his big power hooks coming a mile away. It's just a matter of whether or not you get hit by one. Even at 185, I'm just not sure the power is going to translate up a weight class the way he would want it to. So I kind of think Dustin Stoltzfus is able to ground Dwight Grant and drag him into deep water. Whether or not somebody gets finished at that point, I have no idea. But the 1.5 is a little bit interesting to me. Obviously, Grant could spark him early. Maybe he's not that good on the ground. We don't have a ton of tape on Grant when he's on the mat. So maybe Stoltzfus gets a submission win this time around. I'm not entirely sure. It could come early. This is a crazy fight. Anytime a fighter hops levels like that and both of them are, losing records in the UFC, it's tough to determine how the fight is going to take place. One of them could just get absolutely booted by the other. So I'll say over, but no confidence and not playing that number. Dalton Jung taking on Dustin Jacoby, taking on, this one is a 2.5. Over 2.5, minus 125. Under 2.5 is plus 105. This is Twitter Civil War. This is the fight that everybody is on a side and they have their flag planted and they're incredibly chest-poundingly stubborn on their side, but the bookies are saying it's close. This is going to be interesting. Dustin Jacoby, we know, has terrible takedown defense. He's got a good gas tank and a good get-up game. He's got good ranged striking. Daun Jung is a monster. The dude is huge. He's got those trip takedowns that worked against William Knight. Don't know that those will work against Dustin Jacoby. He's got that big power. He took out Kennedy in that weird, fluky-looking knockout through the guard. I mean, I'm still not entirely sure what to make of Daun Jung, but the man can finish. He knows how to work his way to 15 minutes. Dustin Jacoby, definitely a guy that likes to play the long game. He likes to control the space, use lots of kicks. He's probably not going to finish a guy like Daeun Jung. He's a little bit of a size disadvantage and an age disadvantage here. So I'm thinking over. I like this over 2.5 at -125. Maybe Daeun Jung has made the improvements he needs to starch Justin Jacoby or like ground and pound him out or something like that. But if he doesn't pull off that early finish, both these guys primarily tend to go the distance. I can see this one playing long. So no bet for me at this point, but I would lean to the over 2.5. Herbert Burns taking on Bill Algeo. Total again set at 2.5. Over is +110. Under is -130. Very tempted here on violence. The only problem for me is I would lean more towards fight doesn't go the distance. I would want those extra 2.5 minutes. Bill Algeo is not a physically strong person. He is not much of a finisher. It's a volume-based, exhaustion-based, I will pound you until the referee pulls me off or outwork you until you make a mistake. Herbert Burns is exactly the kind of guy that gets tired and makes those mistakes. Round one, he's a monster. He comes at you with everything he's got. Big power, clinch knees, wing and overhands. If he drags you to the mat, he will lock you down, climb you like a tree, and tap you out. That may not work on Bill Algeo. I mean, Bill puts himself in some bad positions. He scrambles desperately to get back to his feet. Another one of these guys that relies on that get-up game because he does not have a good takedown defense game. So Herbert Burns is very live for an early finish here. And then once he slows down, once he starts to run out of gas, Bill Algeo is the type of pressure cooker fighter that's going to put you away if you can't keep up with him. So Bill absolutely can finish late. But like I said, I would try to find a line where you can get doesn't go the distance rather than the under 2.5. I want those 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, make sure you check the rules of your books, folks. Every single sports book is different, especially if you're in a different country, you're not in the States. In the States, more often than not, the 2.5 rounds means the 2 minute and 30 second mark of the round. So for 2.5, that's in round 3, 2 minutes and 29 seconds cashes the under. 2 minutes and 31 seconds cashes the over. I've seen some books where the 2.5 rounds is essentially fight goes the distance, where they're marking the half round almost like a half of a point in like a football spread or something like that, where if it goes under or over that entire round, that's where they're drawing their line. For most of us stateside, that's fight does or doesn't go the distance, and there is a difference in the line value. So you'd expect to see, -155, -160 fight doesn't go the distance. That's because you're including and hanging on to those extra 2.5 minutes in the end of the third round. So make sure you know your book's rules based on where you live and play. I do lean under. I do think that's a nice violence fight. Jack Shore taking on Ricky Simone. Total set at 2.5. Over is -240. Under is +210. I agree with the over. I think that there's only one guy finishing this fight if we're being real here. Ricky Simone, he loads up on big power shots, but he's a grinder. He uses all of his striking to close the distance, get in close, drag you to the mat. Jack Shore is a guy who likes his grappling. He'll scramble well. He's got that body lock, but his hands are good. He's fast, and he's getting better striking. Ricky Simone's a guy that kind of leads face first. He got knocked out by Faber. We see other guys put highlight reel shots up on him, but he really just relies on that chin and powering through people to get them to the floor so he doesn't end up going to sleep. Jack Shore's the kind of guy that might be able to clip him. Jack Shore has a good get-up game, good butterfly hooks, good scrambles. He's got decent wrestling himself, so if he can manage to mitigate the takedowns from Ricky Simone, get back to his feet at all, he'll have an opportunity to land shots and put Ricky Simone away. But I really don't see how Ricky finishes this fight. So it's either Jack Shore by knockout or both these guys are going to be competing for a decision win in my book. That means we're looking over from a totals perspective. If you're going to play anything, Jack Shore inside the distance, Jack Shore KO. I know Ricky Simone is capable, don't get me wrong, but Jack Shore has never lost, period. So we don't even know what it looks like if he does manage to lose. So saying Ricky's going to knock him out or choke him out, something like that, I just can't get behind it without seeing evidence of it being something possible beforehand. And since Ricky Simone is mostly the guy that likes to grind his way for 15 minutes, I see that being his path to victory if he chooses to look for anything, really. So, yeah, we're going to look over 2.5. Dalcha Lungiambula taking on Punahele Soriano. Total set at 1.5 for this bad boy. And this makes a little more sense to me for a 1.5. Over 1.5, -165. Under 1.5, +145. I really could argue either way on this one, if I'm being honest. Dalcha's a guy that we've seen stopped late in the fight before. He did get his neck snagged in his last fight out and tapped out, but that doesn't happen very often. Usually the gas tank problems arise a little bit deeper into the fight. Punahele's a guy we know can push for 15 minutes, no problem. He's been relatively tough and durable, but he has been, outpointed, outstruck, out-finessed before. Dalcha's not really that guy, but if he does out-finesse you, he's probably going to crack you and put you down early. I could see both these big hitters just kind of slugging it out until somebody falls early. But if either one of them takes maybe a little bit more of a finessed approach to this fight, then it's probably going to fly over that 1.5. And I'm thinking maybe kind of a late finish. So I'll say over 1.5 minus 165. The price is a little bit steep. But like I said, the durability for both these guys hasn't really been much of a question. I don't see Punahele Soriano jumping for a guillotine on Dalcha in round 1. So unless he's knocking him out, I do think this one will last a little bit longer before somebody goes down. Lauren Murphy taking on Miesha Tate. For some reason, Superbook Sports does not have a total set for this one. I think they had it earlier in the week, so let me find an alternative here for us. Women's MMA, so 2.5. We got over 2.5 minus 350. Under 2.5 is plus 260, and that makes a little bit more sense to me. The one big red flag here for me is Miesha Tate cutting all that weight for the first time. She's going to go down to a new weight class. We know she's got the implants. This is going to be a tough cut for her to get down. I want to see her on the scales. She may have a cardio issue. She may have a significant strength advantage. Murphy is freaking tough, but if Miesha Tate is able to ground her and work that jiu-jitsu, maybe she gets a submission of some kind, a ground and pound TKO like she did Marion Renault. You just never know. However, if she's at all impaired from trying to cut weight down here at 35 years old to a new class for the first time, Lauren Murphy hits freaking hard. If she just punches her in the mouth a couple of times, there is the chance if Miesha Tate doesn't have a good cut, if her gas tank isn't where it needs to be because all she's done is tried to suck herself out so she can make this weight class, then Lauren Murphy probably can get a TKO. So watch the scales tomorrow very closely. Let's see what these women both look like when they make their weigh-ins. We'll make a decision from there. More than likely, this is going to be a very grinding, decision-y over type of spot, but at minus 300, you're not getting my money. Charles Jourdain taking on Shane Burgos. Pick'em price tag at 2.5. This is the fight, folks. This one's going to be fun. Early leader for fight of the night. I will say I kind of think there will be violence in this spot. The way these two fight, Charles Jourdain is going to be looking for that knockout punch from the opening bell. Shane Burgos is going to stay in the face of Charles and look to break him the way he does everybody else. Shane has a distinct wrestling advantage. It's something that we don't see very often, but if he chooses to go to it, it is there. Charles Jourdain has been working on that jiu-jitsu, so maybe he catches a flying triangle. You never know. These guys are going to try and get each other out of there in spectacular fashion. Shane Burgos is just one of those guys. It's like Josh Emmett. Every single one of his fights should go under, but he's a tough son of a bitch, and he just never goes down. So because of that, I can't bet unders on Burgos fights because I've seen too many times where he just should be dead or have killed his opponent, but somehow they both manage to stumble their way to the finish line. So I'm going to say over 2.5, but you will not catch me betting an over in a Shane Burgos or a Charles Jourdain fight. The way these guys fight, they always should go under. So under's probably the right side, but I can't bet it. Mudaerji taking on Matt Danger Schnell. Total again set at 2.5. Over plus 125. Under minus 145. Steam coming in on this under. I saw it at a little bit better number earlier in the week, and I think that makes sense, right? We have seen Matt Schnell get cracked and bad, right? Now, he's looked better recently. That chin, we all talk about the chin issues, how easily it is to knock this guy out. He has taken some clean shots recently, walked through them, and looked just fine. He has fixed those chin concerns, but that doesn't change the fact that he gets hit, and Mudaerji hits like a truck. So there's a chance Matt Schnell gets clipped early. Mudaerji, on the other hand, we have seen this guy just one time on the mat, and it was not pretty. His UFC debut, he got tied into a pretzel by Luis Smolka. If Matt Schnell comes out with an idea of grappling in this fight, or even if he at some point gets in a scramble and grabs a body lock or something, it could be over, and it could be over quick, because Matt Schnell is deadly on the ground. Now, I know Brandon Royval got him with that guillotine choke in the last fight, but Matt Schnell was in the driver's seat right up until that took place, and you're not going to see Mudaerji grabbing a guillotine the way that Brandon Royval does. I think both these guys definitely have an avenue to finishing. Both of them have been finished, and their strengths are kind of their opponent's weaknesses. This sets up for violence for me. Once again, I probably would look for fight doesn't go the distance, but 2.5 is not bad, and minus 145 isn't bad either. I would bet the under here. Muslim Salikhov taking on the Leech Jingliang. Total again at 2.5. Over is minus 145. Under is plus 125. And I'm not good with these two fighters. I'll be completely open, upfront, honest with you guys. I do not have a good read on these two fighters. Muslim Salikhov, the king of Kung Fu, guy mixes in takedowns. He can be a little bit low volume, but he throws those spinning kicks. He can blast somebody out there with one punch at any point in time. Jing the Leech Liang, this guy comes in and he's got good grappling. He's a brawler. He likes to come forward. He's got knockout power. Every time he takes a step up in competition, he seems to fall just a little bit short. He's got some holes in his game. So, yeah, I mean, both these guys really probably could take advantage of what the other one is missing. I also think that Muslim has a tendency to suck his opponents into these super low volume type of you go, I go back and forth striking matches. And if that's the case, this one probably does squeeze its way over for a closely contested 15-minute striking match. I'll say over 2.5 is the pick, but I don't know that my money's getting there. Amanda Lemos taking on Michelle Waterson, the karate hottie. Total again at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 220. Under 2.5 is plus 195. This is such a weird fight. So Amanda Lemos, we know she's got that round one killer streak, right? Like, she can knock out anybody in the division in that first round. However, she struggled with someone like Angela Hill. She did get that one knockout clip in, but Angela Hill's got a brick head and survived it. Michelle Waterson is really risk adverse. She trains with Holly Holm. She likes to play on the outside or get all the way in on the grappling. One or the other. You're never going to catch her out of space in the middle. She will have a footwork and a speed advantage here. So I do think in the big cage, Lemos will be chasing Waterson the majority of this fight unless she lands on the button. So you could see Waterson using that side kick to keep the distance, attacking the legs, pitter poking, and then running. I think this one probably sets up for an over. The only one really finishing will be Lemos, and that's if she just catches Michelle Waterson and starches her here in this spot. She doesn't have the volume to compete. Maybe she gets the nod on a decision because she's the fighter going forward, and when she connects, the punches are having a bigger impact. But damn, I don't know that she's going to have the opportunity to land cleanly enough on Michelle Waterson to go ahead and get that knockout blow. This fight is very concerning for me. Earlier on in the week, I kind of thought we were in a small cage. I thought Lemos would corral Waterson, be able to clip her and pound her out of there, but I'm not so sure anymore. So I'll say over 2.5 at minus 220. Not one that I'm confident on or want really any part of, because Lemos' main path to victory is that insane power, and if she gets there, it's going under. So I don't want to have my money laying minus 220 on the over if that's to happen. Yair Rodríguez taking on Brian Ortega in our main event. Total set at 4.5. And here we go again, folks. I've got Vietnam flashbacks from every time Brian Ortega fights. He is another one of these guys, a la Shane Burgos, who I just cannot get right on the totals. He should go under, but he doesn't. Total set at 4.5. Over is plus 110. Under is minus 130, and I would say under. You know, Yair Rodríguez probably has a striking advantage on the feet. He's got those flying knees, crazy flashy kicks and spins. Like, he can knock people out for sure, but Brian Ortega's got a brick for a head, so we have seen the amount of damage this guy can take and not go away. Yair Rodríguez, same thing. The thing that gets it for me, though, is Brian Ortega's submission advantage. He's got a massive grappling edge here. He's talked in interviews about getting back to his roots, wanting to get back to the grappling, the jiu-jitsu, and if he does that, we saw what happens to Yair Rodríguez on the mat when he fought Frankie Edgar. It's been a couple of years, I know, and Brian Ortega may not have the double leg of Frankie Edgar, but the kid just doesn't have it, and he's not going to close the distance and catch up to somebody like Brian Ortega in the amount of time he's had to train for this man. If it hits the floor is lava. Brian Ortega should be able to submit this man. And the fact that both guys could theoretically win by knockout, I do think that lends us to an under. But damn, the durability of these guys, the war we've seen these guys both in, and the way they can just plow through the damage, we can't guarantee this thing will go under. So it's a sketchy 4.5 here. I would say under 4.5 at minus 130. The pick for me is Brian Ortega by sub, but this is one of those ones where you just never know. Sorry, I'm not more concrete for you this week, folks. That is the total takedown for UFC on ABC3. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Sub to the channel. If you haven't already, follow me at Die Hard MMA Pod. And I just want to say a quick hello to all you audio listeners out there, because hit me like a ton of bricks that I've been doing the Total Takedown and the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show for the last couple of years and have just absent-mindedly not uploaded them for you audio listeners. So, hi, do me a favor, leave me a 5-star rating if you wouldn't mind, and a nice little review. You've got fresh episodes coming to you every single week instead of just the single Monday show every single time. You'll be getting all 3 shows uploaded audio form from now on. Thank you all very much for the love and support. Good luck on your bets. We'll see you tomorrow for the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show. Let's roll.